Good afternoon. Welcome to the Professional Training Center. My name is Todd Miranda. I've been licensed in the real estate industry since 1988. Today I run and manage as a broker Todd Elliott Real Estate. So we're going to talk about today is Real Estate Agent 104, working with buyers. And I believe working with buyers is a great way to learn the mechanisms, the procedures, process of transactional deal flow. So it's a great learning experience working with buyers. Some of the objectives we'll touch on today are the approval and the approval process, identify and storyline, very, very critical. One of the most important things, preparation and offer. Preparation and storyline, I think, are the two most important things there to be successful in this endeavor. And then the acceptance of offer. So there's quite a little bit to go over in this slide. And this is one of my favorite actual slides or modules, or one of my favorite things is teaching agents, licensed agents, about the process here. That's how I kind of started my career, actually. Preparation and approval. So preparation, approval, and storyline, they're kind of all connected. When you get a client, you first meet the client, write a story. Talk to the buyer about their needs and wants. And listen, you can't just have this in your head. You're not going to remember every detail. And you're going to lose some of the maybe the most important items or item that they want. Do they have a bank? Do they have a pre-approval? If they don't, recommend, typically, ethically, by law, you're supposed to recommend up to 3 banks. You could have a favorite one, that's fine. But you're supposed to recommend 3 banks or more. But that's if they don't have an approval. The key factors in an approval are down payment. How much do they have to put down on the home? Their assets. So the assets and down payment could be different. They might have they might want to put down 3.5%. So on a $400,000 property, that's $14,000. But what do they have in assets? Because there's also closing costs. Always figure 6% for closing costs. So on a 3.5% down payment, I would always figure 10% to have for down payment and closing costs, unless you're getting a seller's concession. But they might have 40,000 to put down and closing costs, but they may have another 50,000 in a pension, a 401k annuity. That's part of the assets, and gives them a little cushion in case there are any other issues or stuff that needs to be done, any little work on the home, or let's say anything on the mortgage, or the appraisal comes short. Many different reasons why it's always good to have a cushion, and that's a stronger offer if they have a cushion, and you need to relay that message to the agent representing the seller when you put in the offer. It's a strong buyer with cushions and reserves. I always like to say that. What type of mortgage is it? Are they trying to go for it? And how do you determine that? Well, you got to know. Hey, and that really is credit score driven. If someone has 750 credit and 20% down payment, most likely it's going to be a conventional. You just got to listen to them, talk to them, and then you could say, hey, this is going to be your best scenario. They might have their pre-approval already set up, but you should understand that end of it and what their goal is. What is the area they're looking for? Very important. You have to understand where are they looking, and understand a little bit about that area. What is the time frame? These are all things you need to write in their storyline. Write a Google document with all these critical, important factors. It's a big storyline. The time frame. Hey, I want to move in 2 months. If they want to move in a year, then they're not ready today. Find out that information. You also need to find out if there's a seller's concession needed. Okay. And the seller's concession goes on top of the price, and that's money that the sellers are going to add. So, for example, if you have a $400,000 Price, they'll add to the contract 410, which includes a 10,000 seller's concession. The storyline is so critical. Write a story about all the details and specifics. What are their sweet spots and dead spots? For example, a dead spot is something that's just not negotiable. I need a driveway. Guess what? Not every home in Brooklyn or in some areas have driveways. Back when homes were built in this country in big building boom years, 1899, 1920, 1930, there weren't cars. They built these homes for there was mass transit. So you have a lot of these attached homes. They may or may not have driveways. A driveway might be critical to these people, and it is for most people. You need to know that. Okay. How many people are living in the home? And what are their sweet spots? They might just say, hey, I just want to be in a good area. It might just be, hey, I want to be at this price. You need to listen, write down the most important things to them. But then you got to prioritize and find out, hey, what is actually realistic and can be accomplished? What is not realistic? That's for you to explain to them so you can move them off of, hey, that specific, that sweet spot is not exactly doable. And here's why. You got to explain and understand and explain that to them. How many people live in a home? I said that. How many bedrooms? Is a basement critical, important for them? Finished basement, is that critical? How many bathrooms? Driveway, as I mentioned. Do they need a garage? Not every home has a garage. That might be mandatory part of them, but you have to explain to them. If you have to have a garage, which is okay, hey, in the boroughs, only 20% of the homes or less have garages. If you're looking in the suburbs, it's usually about 80% or 70% or 90%, depending upon where. Distance and travel from the home. Hey, if they have one car and one of the spouses, partners, or owners is traveling to um, on the transportation, mass transit, that's important. We need to know how far, what's going to be the time to get to the work. If it's 2.5 hours to get to work every day, probably not going to be manageable for them. What's the time frame to move in? And then again, are these realistic goals? So when you write down the storyline, highlight areas that may not be realistic and then what needs to change, and then you got to talk to them about that, and they have to agree to that. You have to be on the same page with realistic expectations. Team, have the team ready and on an immediate standby. If they have a team and the team's not available for 2 weeks to get back to you, to get the contracts out or to get inspected, move on, you're going to lose a deal. So an attorney, a home inspector, you, the realtor, typically, a banker, and all decision makers. Decision makers could be a spouse, a partner, or it could be the son or daughter. You need to have the decision makers there and ready, and also preferably looking at the home so you're not wasting your time. Communication is core critical from the team, everybody. Condition the buyer. Monthly payment shock is really important. So if they're paying what is monthly payment shock? If they're paying $800 a month, now they're going to be paying $2,800. That's payment shock. You need to explain to them and talk about it. Listen to them. Make sure they're very clear about that. Make sure the pre-approval is clear. Price shock, same thing. They're looking to pay $250, but everything in that area is $400,000. That might not be doable or realistic, or they might not be ready for that. So payment shock, price shock, similar thing, but they need to be conditioned. Out of pocket expenses, how much are they going to need? Do they have a cushion? And also realistic, condition them on the time frame. All important stuff. Condition them as much as possible so they're aware, so there's no surprises and there's no holdups. You want to prepare them so there's no holdups. Everything's easy and seamless because they had the right expectations ahead of time. Very important in anything in life, definitely here with buyers. Preparation and expectations. Submitting the offer, market conditions are very important to understand the different areas. Hey, if this is a very in-demand area, if there's competition for this property, you might want to tell them ahead of time. For example, a property that's $400,000, I will tell my buyers and tell my agent, have them prepared to spend up to 420. Where can they go? Are they approved up to that price, and are they willing to pay up to 420? Thing. I have it ready ahead of time. This way, it is you're not losing days and days with thinking about them. Not to say you're going to spend the money or give them the initial 420 offer, but you know where you could go, so you could move rather quickly, especially in a multiple offer transaction. Consider an offer acknowledgement form. An offer acknowledgement form, not all states have this. This is important, definitely in New York, where sellers agents are not submitting all offers. They're not ethical, and it's a violation that every offer needs to be submitted. So if a seller's agent is only putting in their particular buyers, they could be robbing the seller of other offers and dollars that could come from multiple offer bidding and the seller's agent is supposed to be acting in the best interest of the seller. So an offer acknowledgement form has to be signed by the seller within 48 hours, or that would be a violation. Be on top of the agent, communicate with the agent. Acceptance, once you have an acceptance of the offer, you get a home inspection ASAP, even the next day if possible, certainly not more than 3 days. This is time is of the essence stuff. TOE, one of my favorite words. Have seller's agent ready to draw up the contracts as soon as can be. Typically it's done after the inspection, but hey, sometimes I even ask for it prior. Have buyer's attorney and buyer ready to sign that contract immediately. So have your team ready. If they're doing a home inspection Wednesday, ask the seller's agent, ask the buyer and the buyer's attorney to maybe set up an appointment for Friday to sign the contracts, if possible. You got to organize that when the contracts will be ready, of course, and have the attorney ready, willing, and able. Will and able is one thing. Ready is another thing. That's what we're looking at here. This slide went a little over the time frame, but this is really a lot of complex stuff. We'll also expand on some of these slides later. And that's it for this slide. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you in 2 and 2.